The next presenter will be Linda Blattler from the Czech Globe and Charles University. And Linda is undertaking a PhD research on ecosystem services provided by permaculture. The research is in progress, so we will not be looking so specifically with Linda at as she already described in her abstract at the results, but it is very interesting to look at what questions she's asking, how she's structuring her research, and what is she inspired by. And just apologies because we skipped Linda in the order, and that's my fault. I'm just navigating to very interesting spaces of online and in-person participants, so forgive me, a little mistake. And over to you, Linda.
So can you hear me now?
Yeah,
yeah,
perfect.
It works. Okay, great. So I will share the screen first. Okay, how to get this away? Wait. How do I get rid of this? Okay. Yeah.
There's a little thumbnail sign.
Where?
It's fine. Like, we don't see it right now.
You don't see it?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, good. So I would like to present you the research that I'm currently doing as part of the PhD studies, which takes 3 years. And I'm in the 3rd year, but you will see that I'm far from finishing. The studies are at the Charles University Environment Center, but I also work for Czech Globe, where I do a lot of things with ecosystem services. So because many of you know permaculture, so I will not be describing what it is, but I see it in my research as a social ecological system, and the principles and practices that we know from the theory of permaculture, I believe that they could be contributing to enhancement of ecosystem services, and therefore permaculture should be researched. We also know from the movement itself that it is curious about its effects on ecosystems, and we know that there are not so many studies present. The research, like real scientific research that has been done on permaculture until now, was mostly theoretical. I would point out this one done by Julius Krebs and Sonja Bach, that is really like studying the principles of permaculture and concluding that it could contribute to sustainable agriculture, and that compared to agroecology, it is more going into describing the practices, maintenance, and like improvement of ecosystems. Many of you will know Ferguson's studies, which I think they are very interesting because they say that permaculture is contributing to, you can probably go, yeah, that's here, to the diversification of activities on the farms. And very interesting is that there are young people involved in it. Also here in the Czech Republic, we have problem with it that young people don't want to do agriculture. Another study, which is the only one, as far as I know, it's dealing with real properties of the ecosystem, is a study studying the organic matter content in permaculture soils. It's a French study. It's about 1.5 years old. So that's the only one that is really describing something quantitative. So what I'm studying real farms. I was able to contact and study 6 farms in the Czech Republic. You can see where they are located. And additionally, I have taken into the research 3 Belgian farms. The reason that I have added them was that the studies that the farms in the Czech Republic, they were not producing for the market. So I could not get the data of provisioning services. And then later I get to learn farms in Belgium who are producing for the market. So they have to optimize, and they can provide us with better data about the production. I had 4 spots on each of the farms, kind of 4 ecosystems. I cannot call it like this, but this was like the first one was perennial bed. You know it from permaculture. Second place on the farm itself was something that we call an edible forest, or could call it also agroforest system. And then my first idea was to have two control units. One was a forest, like a natural ecosystem, and the second one was a conventional field, like an artificial man-made ecosystem. I don't know, maybe I will not be able to use these control units because it shows, it comes out that there are too many variables influencing the data from these different ecosystems. Of course, the forest is 50 years old. It's not only 5 years old like the farms, and also the field. There are too many variables that are changing the characteristics. I had two conditions, or more conditions, but just about from the farming point of view. I wanted the farms to be at least 5 years old. I could not get many farms if I wanted them to be older here in the Czech Republic, and I started the research 2 years ago. And I wanted them to be at least 1 hectare large. Because my background originally was in humanities, so it was clear that I will do something qualitative, but I wanted to do a lot of quantitative data too. So because I'm working with something that some describe as an agroecological movement, or some even describe permaculture as social movement, and I see it as a social ecological system, I will be using both ways of research, and I'm choosing ecosystem services as a way or a frame for describing these farms, because I see it as a very holistic system that can give us an overall picture of these farms. For the ecological aspects, like the property of the soil, habitats description, biodiversity, I'm using quantitative research methods, but I'm also interested in the data about like the social life on the farms, about the well-being, about these like non-tangible ecosystem services. For this, I'm using qualitative research methods, and I'm also using combination of both, especially for finding out about the production on the private farms. So just a few words about ecosystem services. Some of you know this frame. Provisioning services give us mostly something tangible. It can be food, but it could be also timber. It could be anything that we use on the material scale. There are regulating services, which are very interesting when you study like alternative growing methods. It can be, for example, water rate infiltration, or the ability of the soil to hold the water and protect us from floods. And there are cultural services that are the intangible benefits that or contributions of nature to our well-being. This one is a very typical cultural ecosystem service. It's the recreation, but it can be also something more deeper, like spiritual or education, whatever. And biodiversity, which is not an ecosystem service itself. Biodiversity is something that is actually the condition of all the services to be performed by the systems. So I'm really covering all the services, or all types of the services in my research. Here you see the list, what will come out of the research. There's a quite big amount of the regulating services, which I would maybe point out: carbon stock, which is very interesting, and soil quality or predator control. I will show you later the tools that I'm measuring it with. About provisioning services, I'm trying to get the information about yield per year of different types of vegetables, fruits, and herbs. Very interesting will be data about yield diversity, and also like a side information if they are using the land also as a source of firewood. Cultural services, we will have data about how people feel about the sense of place, about being educated by the place, if it contributes to their social relations, if they get aesthetic contribution to their well-being from it, and other things. This will come out from the interviews. These are pictures showing some of the many measurements that I do with qualitative methods. This is, for example, a data logger that is measuring the temperature. The newer data loggers we have now, they are measuring also the humidity. So this will be ecosystem service, microclimate control. This was infiltration rate measurement. So how fast does the water is being soaked into the soil, and then also I'm measuring the water field capacity. That means how long it stays there, or yeah, how, let's put it like this. This was a like simplified measurement of biodiversity. This is in a forest. It's like 1 square meter, but as you can see, it's around, it's a circle. And I have taken many soil samples up to 25 centimeters depth of the soil. And with the use of this machine, we measure, or the lab of the Charles University and Faculty of Sciences is measuring for me the nutrients in the soil, and this is for measuring the carbon stock in it. We also do measuring water stability of the soil aggregates. This is still not finished yet. I was also, this is a little picture of doing the hand soil test. So the texture is not being measured in the lab. I was just doing the hand soil test. And this is the scheme of how the tool that was produced specially for this research tool for measuring the wind erosion looks like. One little addition, this is for predator control. These are little aphids, and this was placed in the permaculture places, and the number of aphids after 24 hours was measured, so that's predator control. This is just a list of all the measurements, like the quantitative data. As you can see, I will also measure, but that's with the help of interviews, not only the yields, but also the diversity, which is very important, also ecosystem service. Qualitative methods, it's very simple. I'm running interviews with these people. I have done 12 interviews. On some farms, it was only one person who was willing to speak. On some farms, it were both of the owners or more people. This was a special way how to count or estimate the amount of production on the private farms that do not produce for the market. So with the help of interview and these little cards that are different like classes of foods consumed in the Czech Republic, they could tell me like if they buy this thing, or if they don't buy it at all, or in the middle if they buy it sometimes. So I will see if it's what comes out. As I said, on the Belgium farms, we know the numbers much better, but also not 100%. This is just a kind of a inspirational picture how some of the interviews may look like. This farm is about 8 years old, and it was created on a place that used to be a field in the very past, and then it was redone into like a grassland, but not with sheep. It was just cut by a mower. And this person who lives there, this is a beautiful example of ecosystem service called experimenting and education, because he himself is interested in the data and about how much he has been able to improve this ecosystem, the soil quality and all these things within these 8 years that they have been like recreating this place from just a plain grassland. Challenges of the research. It's a big part of my research is this part where the problems and things that I thought they would work, somehow they don't work the way I thought. So this is a big part of the research. What comes out as a big question is if we can, when we do permaculture research, if we can call it like alternative agriculture, or if we can use it as an inspiration for agriculture. Why I'm saying it is because most of the growing area for like on these farms, sometimes the farms are 1 hectare or 2 hectares, but the place where they really grow vegetables and things that you harvest every year, these fields are usually about 300 meters big, which is not really big, and then the comparison with normal agriculture is actually not actual anymore because the ecosystem is completely different. So what also was suggested by the French researchers from the who did this pedagogical research is that we should be actually comparing permaculture, excuse me, with normal family gardens. Maybe these family gardens are, when they are not using chemicals, maybe they are being successful as much as permaculture in doing the biodiversity, the soil properties. So this has emerged as quite an actual question. Also, everybody, although the people have some kind of education in permaculture, everybody's permaculture is different. And I'm, for example, not really dealing with asking them what exactly they do. I'm asking about manure and these things, but I'm not really going very deep into the practices that they do, if they do this or if they don't do something what someone else does. So then again, saying in general permaculture is doing this or that is producing such and such ecosystems is actually difficult because every permaculture place can look differently. Comparison with other systems is very difficult when we concentrate on more characteristics because there are too many variables. Yeah, this goes back to the previous information. It's really hard to say like that permaculture will have this and that influence because the size of the garden plays a role, how the people, how much they work there, if it's just their hobby or if they spend I don't know 50 working time there, also if it's like how high it is and all these things. So it's very difficult to make a generalized claim about permaculture because there are too many variables. And a very important thing, it's absolutely hard here in Czech Republic to get data on yield because the people don't know how much they harvest, and they have no notes about it. And also in Belgium, where they sell for the market, they also have data only about, let's say, the money that they have earned, but they very often don't know what they have sold because they have it only in kilos. So this is quite a big complication because everybody who would be interested in thinking about permaculture as a possible way of growing food will ask this, like how much is it actually yielding. Okay, that's all. I will not tell you any results yet. I have some little hints how it could come out, but for now it's too early to say it in general. So here is just some context if you are interested in cooperation or questions, whatever. I'm open for that. Feel free. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Linda. Really great and very central topic to our conference, especially with regards to measuring productivity. I remember in 2017 there was a report published in the UK called Matter of Scale, where they actually measured a variable productivity of different ecosystem services on small agroecological farms under 20 hectares. So maybe there is a hint, but indeed it is not only difficult for small farmers, especially permaculture farmers who favor this kind of spontaneously arising biodiversity, to measure all the different components. In addition, the open softwares that could help, they are not yet fully available, I think, in open source common circulation, but they do exist. And we have a question from the audience here, from Robert, so I hand over to him.
Thank you for interesting presentation. It was absolutely stunning, amazing job that you started to do. From research point of view, it's just like a pioneer work to start to collect data from permaculture experiments. And I'd like to ask you for when did you start your work? I mean, how much data you have so far? What is your plan for research of soil and yield and other physical, biophysical parameters there? Could you please tell me some more information about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I started 2 years ago because you always have to do these things in the season, in the spring or in the autumn. And I finished last autumn. That was the second Belgian part. And I want to process all these biophysical data actually as soon as possible, which means that's the first task I want to do. I'm planning to do like 3 articles, one about regulating services in permaculture, one about cultural services in permaculture, and perhaps the yields. I don't know if it will come out like this. I have too many data. Because there was, for example, the thermometers were on the farms for 3 months, and it was measuring temperature every hour. So, so I have to process this, and because I'm also working a part of it, I don't have so much time, or as much time as I wished. Some data will be probably, I will not be able to use it because, or just very kind of, I don't know, I will have to call it estimation, because this tool that we used for erosion, like erosion control, the wind erosion, was done by somebody and probably not in such a good quality. And yeah, so I don't know. I don't think this will be, it will be more just an indication, but I will not be able to use this. The water stability of aggregates, that's running, and it will be kind of, yeah, perhaps, yeah, we use every aggregate we use 3 aggregates for 1 sample, so it will be a lot of data, and I have to cooperate with people who do pedology to do this. And what will be easier, that's the nutritions and carbon stock. That's kind of that's easy. What comes out is that the soil in permaculture places is not always as great quality as we think. I found farms with a huge phosphorus surplus, like 10,000 times more than it should be. So this will be probably kind of easy to process, and I will not be comparing the farms one to another. Yeah, that's probably that's not possible. So a lot of work ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, so thank you very much. Congratulations and good luck. And I'd like to, I will really appreciate some information on the progress of your experiments. So if you,
thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll do it.
And just from the background, that we have one more question from Naomi about how did you select your farms for your study? That's from Naomi van der Velde.
So I had like 4 conditions. One was the 5 years existence, the size, and then more personally on these people, I wanted them to have some kind of formal but informal education of in permaculture, which would be the Czech PDC, or I know that there's also an alternative one, like an older teacher who was here even before the time of PDC existed. So that was the condition, and which in the end was not true at all farms. I had to take one in who did not have this education. And important condition was that their aim was to be self-sustaining themselves with the food. So I wanted people who planned originally to grow as much food as possible. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Linda. It sounds like it's been very inspiring for our audience, because there's now a flow of questions. So I just would like to say that we will save them for our discussion later on, after we complete all the presentations. Very interesting and inspiring project, and we will be surely waiting for results